Hi, in this Affinity Publisher Get Started tutorial, we are going to go through 9 high-impact tasks that you can learn so that you can jump into using Affinity Publisher quickly. So these are the things that are the most important to know, whether you're coming to this from another layout software and you just need to know where things live, or if you are coming brand new to this will get you started quickly so that you can start playing around with it and feel like you know what you're doing. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump in. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to create a document. So we're going to go up to File and New, and you will get this window pop up. So there are a bunch of preset layouts in here, so sizes and orientations, and then they're also categorized for you. So there's print, press ready, photo, etc. So I'm in the print section, but you can see if I scroll, all the other sections are there as well. It's just that this lets you kind of jump to a section. So I'm just going to use letter. Now, when I click on that, it gives me a preview of my document, and there are these hashed lines over here. This means that I'm creating a 2-page spread, so like designing a book. If you're making a book, that's great. Just leave everything as is. If you want to do a single-page document or pages that are not in facing spreads, go over here to the Pages tab and uncheck Facing Pages. That will turn it into a 1 page at a time view as you are designing. The other thing that you may want is to put margins on. So over here in the Margins section, you can choose to include or not include margins. And you can click in any one of these boxes and adjust your margins. Now, if you want everything to be even, you can just type that in once by clicking this Link Margins button here. And now when I type in any one box, it's going to change all of them to that value. So now I have a 1/2 inch margin all the way around here. The other important thing to know is if you want to have custom sizes, you can do that right here. If you're in a country that uses metric, you can go to millimeters or centimeters here, and you can also change to pixels or points if you're used to working with that. DPI is your resolution of your document. If you're creating this for print, I would recommend just leaving it at 300. So now that we have those basic settings, let's just click Create, and there we go. Let's take just a quick moment to talk about how everything is arranged here. So across the top, we have some menu items, and a lot of these are fairly intuitive. So File has a lot of things like create a new document, open a document, close, save, and some other things that we will look at. Edit, document, don't use as much from this menu. There's some text options here. You can create tables. This will give you layer options. I don't really use select much. View can be helpful. You can decide that you don't want to show those margins, or you do want to show those margins, and some other guides and rulers that you can see from here. This one is important. Window gives you access to a lot of different features called panels. So let's, for example, bring up the Layers panel. You're going to need the layers a lot, and so we want to see this window. So you can see this created a pop-up window. We can put this wherever we want. We can squish it up or expand it. So you can work with this wherever you would like to place it. So all of those windows are found under Window. Okay, the other thing is we have this toolbar off to the side. So a lot of features that we're going to be going over today are located on this left-hand side. And how I like to think of this is whatever button you push is what your mouse is going to do. So right now it's on the Move tool. I have nothing on my document, so there's nothing to move. So let's just quickly put something there. So I just clicked on the shape tool, and I'm going to hold my mouse button while I drag, and now I have a circle. Back to the move tool, now I can move this around. We are going to be looking at more of these tools, but I just wanted to kind of explain that these are functions really. So creating text, creating shapes, placing pictures, things like that. All right, so I'm just going to delete that shape for the moment. The other thing I want to point out is that as we switch through these tools, we get some different options pop up here. This is our contextual toolbar. And so just as a reference, I'm going to go over to PowerPoint, which is something a lot of us are familiar with, and just show how really we've got a similar thing happening here. When we click on these different menu items, we get a bunch of different kind of sub options underneath it. So likewise, watch this area as I click through these. I'm going to get different options pop up. Now, getting back to our new document, let's say that we didn't want to have half-inch margins. We made a mistake. So let's go to the Move tool. When we are on the Move tool, you can go back to Document Setup, and you will have all these options again. You'll note that you can apply any changes to the whole document, so if you have multiple pages, or to selected pages. So let's go to the tab for margins, and let's just make this 3/4 of an inch instead. So in desktop publishing, placing text is probably the most important thing that you can know. There are 2 tools for creating text in Affinity Publisher. The first is the Frame Text tool, and the second is the Artistic Text tool. Let's start out with the Frame Text tool. This essentially draws a text box. And so again, if you're used to PowerPoint or Microsoft Word, you know that you can draw out a text box, and then you can start typing your text. So that is easy enough. I am not going to type a bunch of stuff in here. Instead, I'm just going to take a little shortcut and insert some filler text. That just puts some lorem ipsum in there. If you're following along and you want some text to play with too, just go to Text and insert filler text, and it will add this lorem ipsum into your text box. So the next thing that you may want to do is you may want to change the font. So let's go in here, and I'm just going to put my cursor anywhere. I'm still in the text box feature, and I'm going to go Command A or Control A if you're on Windows, and that just selects all the text in that text box. Because I'm still on this Frame Text tool, I have text-related options up here. So because text is so important in desktop publishing, we're going to go through some of these, but they should be fairly intuitive. So obviously the first thing we want to do is change a font. So that is pretty easy. We can just click on that window and we can scroll through. I'm not clicking anything with my mouse. I'm scrolling, and it's previewing my text in my document. So let's choose this one. This is a nice looking font. If there are options like bold or italic, you will see them in the second box. You can also change them from these little buttons here. So we could bold everything, yes or no. If you want to change the font size, you can do that here. And again, as I scroll, you get a preview of what it looks like. So let's change it to 14 point. I'm going to skip these. These are not necessarily beginner friendly, but you will want to know how to justify your text. So right now it defaults to left align, meaning everything's going to start on the left all lined up, but we can also right align it, which aligns everything to the right edge, or we can center it. We can also choose to kind of center it so that it's justified on both sides. If we had things that were needing to be centered within this text box, we could also vertically align this to the top edge, to the bottom edge. We could center it within the text box, and we could justify it vertically. So I'm going to just draw another text box because it's probably easier to demonstrate that. So I'm going to just make this a little bigger so it's really obvious. All right, so I've got hello world. I can right justify it, I can center justify it, but then I can also align it to the top edge of the text box, to the bottom edge of the text box. I can center it in the middle of the text box. And if I had multiple lines, it would spread all those lines out evenly within the text box. All right, I'm going to get rid of this text box. I'm just selecting it and hitting the delete key. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to show you is the other way you can make text, and that is the artistic text tool. So with this one, the text box is going to be the size of your text. So I'm going to hold the mouse button and draw out the size of letter that I want. And we'll make this our heading. So you can see that the text box is very tightly aligned to this. And what that also means is this can be scaled by just dragging any one of these corners out. And if you wanted to stretch out the text, you could do that. Or you could make it kind of, oops, come on. Grab one of these and make it tall and skinny, or really short. And so we can just move that into place. All right, so there is our two text options, creating a text box and creating a header text using the artistic text tool. Next, we're going to talk about changing colors. So I am going to change the color of this header text. We already learned how to change fonts and font sizes. Let's highlight this text by holding our mouse and dragging over it. And right here, I have a color button. So font color when I hover over it, and that's going to bring up a color wheel. There are different ways to work with color. So in this color tab, there's a drop down here. And so you can choose between the color wheel, you can pick sliders where you can just kind of choose this way. And you're going to have to choose your hue and saturation and all that separately. And then there's also CMKY, there's RGB sliders. If you have like the code for the color you want, you can type them in these boxes here. I tend to use the color wheel on here. And the way that this works is on the outside, you choose your base color. So green, blue, purple, or whatever. So let's pick this kind of pinky color. And then within here, you can kind of choose your hue and saturation. So here's kind of your light to dark, and here is your saturated or less saturated. So you can kind of just move it around until you find what you want. Now there's another way that you can work with color, and that's through swatches, which is also available in this same pop-up window. So there are also different kind of palettes already created for you. So if you're working in grayscale, you can grab all different grays. If you are working in color, then it gives you some sample colors here. And it also will show you recently used colors in your document. So if I wanted to go to a recently used color, there's one. And now I can go back to that purple that I had before. So selecting my text and going to that recent swatch. So now I have changed the color. There is another way that you can get to color, and that is over here. So again, we can go and highlight our text, double click on this, and it gives us our color chooser. And so now we have another way that we can choose color. So let's maybe go to this kind of lilac color. And there we go. So if you are creating a document, there's a very good chance that you are creating a multi-page document. So how do we add additional pages to our document? So let's go to Window and then find Pages. And that brings up a new pop-up window called Pages. I do have a video on my channel about master pages, so I'm not going to go into that in this video, but let's talk about adding just extra pages here. So here's the page we've been working on, and in this section under Pages, I can click on this one with the plus that says Add Pages. It asks me how many pages I want, so let's add an additional 2 pages. It asks me if I want to insert it before or after page 1. And if I wanted to apply a master page, then that is where I would choose here. But like I said, we're not going to go into that here because that's kind of just one level up from a very basic beginner video. So let's add 2 more pages after page 1. And you can see the little thumbnails of those pages now. When we click on the thumbnails, it puts an outline around it. So I'm going to double click on this one. So this is now what I am working on. So the next thing I want to show you is how to place an image in your document. There's also a couple ways that you can do this. The fastest way is to go over to this tool here, the Place tool. As soon as you click it, it is going to bring you to your File Explorer. And let's get this out of the way. And I'm just going to pick a picture. And then let me back up because that happened really fast. But Place Image tool, find your picture. And I'm going to open it. And now look at my cursor. It's got like a weird kind of arrow with another arrow pointing down to a circle in kind of blue. So now I can click on my document and it placed my picture. You can see I have a bounding box around it, so if I can grab any of those corners, I can place this onto my document. As just a little quick aside, you'll notice as I'm moving around, I'm getting little guidelines pop up. And so now I can see I'm perfectly centered because I've got a green guideline coming down the middle and a red guideline coming across the middle from top to bottom here. So my picture is exactly centered at the moment. So I just wanted to point out that that's called snapping, and that is something you can turn off or on. It is located up here. It looks like a little horseshoe magnet. When I click it and it is off, it will have a light background like this. And I click it when it's activated and it will have a darker background. So when that is turned off, you will not see those guidelines pop up and it will be harder to center. When you turn it on, it will kind of want to lock into some of these aligned spots, like right in the center. So that can be a helpful tool for laying things out perfectly. So another way that you can place an image is to just, let's go to the next page here, is to go up to File and Place. And this will also allow you, let's find another picture here. To do exactly the same thing. So we can place our picture here. If you decided you didn't want that picture after all, I have the picture selected, and that is giving me picture options up here in this contextual toolbar. So I can click Replace Image. It brings back up my, my File Explorer, so I can just find the picture I want and just change it. All right, so a couple more things about pictures. We can grab any of these handles and rotate things. If you hold Shift as you're rotating, it will go in 15-degree increments. You can also go to the corners, and when you hover near it, your arrows turn kind of double-ended, and you can also rotate. The other thing you may want to do is crop your image. So over here on the toolbar, we have a crop tool. So when I click on it, my little bounding box turns to having like little lined edges here instead. And so now I can crop this down. Let's say I want to get rid of some of this grass. And now it is all cropped. I just clicked away to deselect it, and my image is cropped. The next feature I want to talk about is the alignment tools. So when I've got multiple objects here, we talked about how we can use the snapping guides as we are moving things around, and it will give us some little guides as we just use the mouse to locate things. However, you can line things up perfectly. So let's say I want both of these images to be on the left side and both of this text to be on the right side. So I am going to hold Command or Control, I'm going to hold Shift, and while I hold Shift, I'm going to select both images. And then up here in this tool here, it says Alignment. I'm going to click on that, and I want to align it to the left margin. So I just click that box, and now it's aligned both of my pictures to the left. So now let's click on the text, hold Shift, click on the other text box, go back to alignment, and I'm going to put this one on the right. If you're brand new to desktop software, you may not be familiar with the concept of layers. So in most documents, even in PowerPoint or Canva, you are working with layers of items. So each of these items on the screen right now is on its own layer. And so what that means is we can kind of build a little bit of a sandwich with it. So if this is one layer, I can put this word barn on top. I could put the word lake on top of that. I could put this picture on top of that picture, and so they're all stacking on top of one another. And what determines what we see first is based on the order of the layers. So we have this layers panel here, and so here you can see my barn picture, my lake picture, my word barn, and my word lake. And so whatever's on the top is the top layer. If I click on this and just drag it down to the bottom, now we don't see it. But if we pull all this stuff away, there it is. It's just covered up because it's now on the bottom. So it's important to understand layers because it's going to dictate what you see when you have different elements on top of one another. So right now, barn is on top. And I can move it over the lake picture because it's still on top of the lake. If I move this lake picture up, that is now the top layer. Now, if you have worked with something like Canva, you may be used to buttons that will send things to the back or move things forward. So the other way that we can work with these different things, let's kind of stack them again, is with these buttons up here. So this button will move our selected object all the way to the back. This one will move it all the way to the front. You can see it jump in this list here. So let's move the lake all the way to the back. And then let's find this word lake, which is currently hidden behind the barn picture. And we can do that by selecting this layer, lake, and moving it forward one. And that was enough to get it on top of the barn. So there we have found it again. So this one sends something all the way to the back. This one here sends something all the way to the front. And these ones in the middle move it up one layer at a time in this list. So hopefully that's a quick introduction to how layers work, because they're very important in any kind of design software. All right, let's go back to our first page again, and we want to export this document. So we've learned how to create a new document. We've created text. We've learned how to create an image and crop an image. We've learned how to change colors, fonts, font sizes. So we have all the basics to get you started with a document. So the last thing you need to know is how to export it all. So when you are ready, go to File and Export. Most of the time with a document, you're going to export it as a PDF. So in this first drop-down menu, you want to make sure that you choose the file type that you want. You've got lots of choices, but let's choose PDF. There's also some presets in here. You can choose PDF for print. You can also choose the X1A. That's a popular one. I'm just going to leave it on PDF for print. I usually don't mess with any of these. Now, just like when you're printing a document, you can choose to do all pages, just the current page, or you can say, let's go back to all pages. You can go to this box and just say page 1 to 2. And then I'm going to click Export. It's going to ask me where I want it. Let's just move it to Downloads. We'll save it. And it is exporting it. And I have it set to just automatically open in Acrobat. And here is the 2 pages of my document that I have exported. We've given you an introduction in less than 30 minutes, and I hope you found that helpful. I have lots of other videos on my channel doing a little bit deeper dives into many of these functions, so feel free to check that out. Follow and subscribe for more. Thank you.